It's late August 1985, and I'm alone in my dorm room thinking I've just made a huge mistake.
It's late August 1990, and I've woken up for the 5th morning in a row to discover I cannot move my fingers or toes.
A few days earlier, I'd moved from Marquette, Michigan to Wayne, Nebraska to start college. I was nervous and homesick.
I was in the first years of my blissful marriage, ready to start a second year of graduate school, and there I was, freezing up joint by joint like the Tin Man. I was in pain and afraid.
Then, fate took the form of my next-door neighbor, who told me that Sting, former lead singer of one of my favorite 80s bands, The Police, was playing in Omaha the very next week.
6 months later, with an eventual diagnosis of rheumatoid arthritis, my beloved husband Travis was my constant caregiver, helping me bathe and dress. He even did a great job putting lipstick on me.
I go to the show, and 2 hours and 3 encores later, left exhausted, exhilarated, and thinking, maybe this living in Nebraska thing won't be so bad after all.
From those lipstick moments, I found comfort in asking for and receiving the care I needed.
Were you still in pain?
Yeah? Were you still nervous and homesick?
A little.
But were you happy?
Late August 2000. From the first day that Karla set foot on campus, I thought, oh my God, how can you be so happy? I mean, she comes to school at 7:30 a.m. and says,
"Good morning!"
And she really means it.
I never seriously thought about my happiness until the day my friend Dave bounced into my office like Tigger and said,
Karla K., I think I get you now. You follow your bliss. That's why you're so happy.
Thus, our conversation began. When we first embarked on our happiness exploration, we were overwhelmed by the volume of Googleable research on the subject. Of course, we found books and articles, but we also located the World Database of Happiness, which houses thousands of scholarly articles on, you guessed it, happiness.
We learned that the study of happiness isn't anything new, and it's not a pop culture fad. For example, in 2010, there was actually an interfaith summit on happiness, where the Dalai Lama said that we have a responsibility to make a happy life for ourselves and others.
The Dalai Lama's words inspired us to share the story of our conversations and investigation in the hopes that each of you will cultivate a culture of happiness.
Now, we need to talk about happiness, not to ignore the world's atrocities or personal challenges, but to discover ways to creatively solve problems and pave the way for compassion and resilience, even when life gets tough.
We've been really wrestling with how to best define happiness because there are so many definitions and because it is so personal. Some scholars don't even attempt to define it. But we can tell you what it is not. It is not hedonistic behavior at the expense of others.
Since each of us have unique personalities, believe it or not, I'm an introvert.
I'm an extrovert.
I want predictability.
I crave novelty.
Our happiness journeys are also unique. However, the happiness experience, whether yours or mine, are connected in these two ways. First, physiologically when we're happy, our brain patterns change for the better. And second, your happiness can impact that person's happiness.
So what happens to us physiologically when we're happy? You've heard of serotonin and dopamine. These, along with other feel-good chemicals, release in our brain, and it helps us feel more motivated and productive. It also enhances our overall physical well-being. Who wouldn't want that? We need to tap into this resource that Dave learned about his first year of college.
I didn't realize it at the time, but my Sting concert experience would be something of a watershed moment in my life. The first step in a 30-year journey to recapture the feeling I first experienced on that August night in 1985. The hair rising on the back of your neck, goosebump-inducing excitement of live music. Now, over the years, I've seen dozens and dozens of acts live, but my enthusiasm for them all pales in comparison to the Irish rock group U2. I first saw U2 in 1992 in Ames, Iowa, and I've referred to this show as the single most romantic moment of my life. And I didn't even have a date. It was so transformative that I promised myself I would go anywhere, anytime to see U2 again and again. Since then, I've traveled over 20,000 miles to see them a total of 13 times in 8 states, including this past summer when I did a coast-to-coast trek, seeing them in San Jose, Chicago, and Boston. So what makes a U2 concert so special? Imagine singing songs like With or Without You or Beautiful Day with 50,000 of your closest friends. Add to the mix a healthy dose of social consciousness and activism, and U2 becomes more than just a concert. It becomes a communal celebration where I felt joy, anger, hope, and even had tears in my eyes on a few occasions. After seeing U2, I'm usually on a concert high for several weeks and kind of won't shut up about it. The end result of this extreme enthusiasm is that I notice I'm smiling a little more, and more productive, more creative, and that life is just better. Why wouldn't I want to experience that happiness again and again? And why wouldn't I want others to experience happiness in their own way?
Amazing experiences like Dave's concert adventures are one of the building blocks to happiness. And remember those feel-good chemicals? They make us feel more helpful, pleasant, and sociable.
This creates an upward spiral of happiness, also known as emotional contagion, where your positive attitude has the power to spread happiness to others.
Like a rash, a really happy rash.
So emotional contagion is the second way our happiness experiences are connected.
I first experienced the power of emotional contagion on the cusp of my 13th birthday. The same week I was getting used to my braces and headgear, I broke my foot. The following week, we picked up the back brace that would correct the scoliosis in my spine. And I would wear that brace all day, every day, for the next 3 years. It was made of hard, molded plastic from here to here. It had 2 metal rods up the back, 1 up the front, and it was all connected with a metal ring on top. Thick pads pushed me from either side, so as I grew, my spine would straighten. There I was, braces, broken foot, back brace, just in time for the first day of junior high. I remember feeling self-conscious. And it was a little bit of a challenge to get around on those crutches. But honestly, I remember feeling genuinely happy. I also remember feeling a little puzzled when adults would sometimes say things like, "Whoa, how can you be so happy, little girl? You got a lot going on there." Looking back on it and having done all of this happiness research, I wonder, was it nature or nurture? Either way, my sunny disposition was my family's doing. I think I was born pretty happy, but my parents' daily positivity was the greater influence. They shared the happiness habit I carry with me all my life. You might have noticed I have maybe some aches and pains, and like all of us, I have occasional situational struggles. But I can always find happiness. And as Dave said, why wouldn't I choose to be happy?
Some people think that happiness is over there.
Actually, it's right here. We are all called to be happy.
It is time for each of us to rethink and practice happy. And it is a practice, one that isn't always easy, but when we support each other in our efforts, the reward can be invaluable. So, in the spirit of creating a culture of happiness here today, we now present to you our top 3 ways to be happy. Be intentional, be grateful, and surround yourself with caring people. First, happiness is a choice. You have to get in the habit of doing it. When you try a new sport or musical instrument, it may seem a bit challenging at first, but we know that when we exercise a muscle, when we exercise our brain also gets stronger.
So when I talk to Dave about what makes me happy, or I think about what makes me happy, I create stronger, more resilient neural pathways. My brain defaults to happy when I practice happy.
According to the 2011 documentary Happy, 40% of our happiness comes from intentional activity. So doing things that you enjoy, like me going to concerts, Karla practicing yoga, whatever your thing is, can be a path to happiness.
And the key here is intentionality, notice and savor pleasure and joy in that moment.
And as you're mindfully engaged in these intentional activities, here is happiness tip number 2. Offer thanks. People who are grateful, even for the tiniest things, like a parking spot that miraculously opens up,
Or a family meal.
or a walk on a fall day, are more alert, energetic, and have an increased satisfaction with life.
In addition to intentionality and gratitude, our third suggestion for happiness is to surround yourself with a caring community. The PBS documentary, This Emotional Life, shares that both extroverts
And introverts.
are happier when we are with caring others than when we're alone.
One way that Karla and I intentionally practice happy with our caring community at Nebraska Wesleyan is by teaching what we love. Karla has started our campus yoga club and regularly teaches a class on the liberal arts of yoga.
And Dave is fulfilling a dream this semester, teaching a class on the music and meaning of his favorite band, U2. Sharing our respective paths to happiness and talking with our students as they discover and develop their own happiness is invigorating and inspiring.
So we're asking, what will you do to mindfully create a culture of happiness with your family, friends, and coworkers? What steps can you take to spark an upward spiral of happiness? When we're done with this session, we want you to go to lunch and talk to others about how to cultivate happiness. It doesn't cost anything, but it can change your life and the life of those around you.
It's our collective responsibility to be happy and share happiness with other people. Make the practice of happiness a central part of your daily life. By doing so, you'll discover that when you embrace the things in life that give you life, you'll have more of yourself to give to others. There is no greater gift than that.